coming on the air tonight with Louisiana locking down because of these huge storms, potentially deadly floods, maybe tornadoes getting ready to slam the South. Already, more than a foot of rain reported in some spots. We're live in Slidell, Louisiana. We're also live in Tel Aviv after that new warning bell from President Biden saying Iran is threatening to launch a significant attack, as he put it, on Israel. What it might mean for the rest of the region. Then the 6 ex-officers, part of the so-called Goon Squad, learning the new sentences they face for their racist torture of 2 black men. Our team's in Mississippi with the reaction. Plus, the first nationwide push ever to get so-called forever chemicals out of our drinking water. Why it's an uphill battle, even if these new rules could literally save thousands of lives. And a new Wonka reboot. No, not the Timothée Chalamet movie, but that ridiculous flop of a festival in Scotland that went totally viral. So could the Scottish Oompa Loompa really be coming to L.A.? That's later on in the show. Hey there, I'm Hallie, and tonight, dangerous and possibly deadly flash flooding and tornado watches are sweeping the South as we speak, with millions of people in the path of these intense storms. Reported tornadoes, look at this, in Louisiana, bringing down street poles and power lines. You've got streets, buildings absolutely wrecked. Reportedly, multiple people taken to the hospital. You see the damage here. You see that tractor trailer in the middle of the road. Huge trees pulled up, and then one of the tornadoes we're about to show you moving in the sky, super dark even during the day. That's what it looks like there. Another one in Texas took the roof off this building. You see the wood, the debris spread everywhere. On top of this, torrential rain has New Orleans in a rare flood emergency, water up to people's knees. Same thing in eastern Texas. Look at this. This is a volunteer fire department staffer heading out through the water with cars nearly fully submerged. Some spots reported getting up to 15 inches of rain overnight. Now, a town in Mississippi is telling people to evacuate ASAP because of concerns that a levee could end up breached. It doesn't stop there. We're seeing hurricane-strength winds up to 90 miles an hour or so, with tens of thousands of people in the dark tonight. Meteorologist Bill Cairns is standing by with the forecast, but I want to start with Kathy Park, who's on the ground in Slidell, Louisiana. It is a mess there, Kathy. Talk us through what the biggest concern is where you are.
Hey there, Hallie. Yeah, we just got to Slidell a few minutes ago, and you don't have to go far to see the extent of the damage. And you're navigating a whole lot of damage in this area. I just want to show you just kind of what we're seeing here on the ground. Behind me are a couple of businesses. You can see all that's standing right now is basically the frame of the building, the entire structure completely blown out. You might notice the traffic moving quite slowly because a lot of the power lines are down, obviously knocked down by the damaging winds. You have utility crews here on the ground. They're rushing to get the power restored. But these are some of the things that we're seeing pretty much across the region. In fact, 2 hours away, we were here in a different part of Louisiana, closer to Baton Rouge, and there was debris scattered just about everywhere. Some of the residents we spoke with said that this storm came upon them pretty quickly. They did hunker down at home, but they noticed tons of trees just kind of starting to fall around them. And obviously now it's a huge cleanup ahead. Tens of thousands of people are still without power. You might hear a lot of the background noise now. Generators are running. It looks like a lot of these businesses do not have power as we've been kind of driving around. We've also noticed flash flooding is an issue, ponding, a lot of high water still in this area. There's also a notable headline to report. There is an apartment complex not too far from here, and we're told roughly 50 people had to be rescued at the height of the storm because they were just trapped because of the trees and all the just kind of the debris that was scattering throughout the area. So several people had to be rescued. Fortunately, no fatalities, but we do know of several injuries. And we have also learned that there is one fatality being reported related to these storms in Mississippi.
Looking at the damage behind you and around you, Kathy, what had the forecast been? Do you think people had felt prepared for what was ever to come?
You know, I was kind of monitoring this storm, and alerts were issued for hours on end. And obviously, when it comes to Mother Nature, it's really hard to predict ultimately where the path of the tornado will land. When we were in Baton Rouge, we thought we were in the bullseye, and there were certainly lots of tornado warnings and watches, especially during the morning commute. But here we are in Slidell, which is about 30 minutes outside of New Orleans, and this is perhaps one of the hardest hit regions. But fortunately, the storm has moved out, but obviously a lot of damage assessment ahead. Hallie?
Kathy Park, live for us there in Slidell. Kathy, we'll be checking back in with you throughout the night. Thank you. I want to go to meteorologist Bill Cairns now. Bill, what are you watching for in the next couple hours?
If we get any additional tornadoes or strong thunderstorms with wind damage, this has been one of those weird events where these storms are actually stronger in the morning hours than they are in the evening. Typically, late afternoon and evenings when you have the peak heating of the day, the most energy available for the storms. And that's not quite the case today. All of these dots show you where we've had wind damage reports. The white ones are the hail damage reports. And you can notice the Baton Rouge area got hit pretty hard, and also Slidell, where we just showed you where Kathy's located. But in the last couple hours, they've been scattered from Mobile towards Pensacola, and not the concentration that we had earlier of damage reports. We do have a tornado watch that goes until 8 o'clock this evening, so there's still a chance for at least a spin-up or two, especially if any storms make their way out ahead of this line. And the line still has some pretty strong gusty winds with it, not the 80, 90 mile per hour gusts we had earlier today. But as we're going through Wright, which just had the worst of the storm, Panama City still has to go through this line of bright red thunderstorms. This is where we have the severe thunderstorm warning and the potential, at least, of gusts up to 60 miles per hour. That includes Interstate 10 here towards Mariana, too. And again, probably about a half hour, 45 minutes from now around Panama City. The flash flooding has been pretty epic, too. We had 6 inches of rain at the International Airport in New Orleans, and that caused a flash flood emergency. The pumps just couldn't take the water out fast enough. Now they are catching up, and all those warnings are being dropped. Just a couple left here, one around Biloxi. We've also had some pretty heavy rain just outside of the Dallas-Fort Worth area. That should be ending. The flood warnings in Mississippi have been dropped. The additional heavy rain tonight will be in the Panhandle towards Tallahassee, southern and central Georgia, and eventually tonight into South Carolina. And tomorrow, this storm's still going to have a punch with it, not like today, but our friends, and especially the Ohio Valley here from Cincinnati to Pittsburgh to Cleveland down to Charleston, isolated strong storms Tampa, Orlando, the I-4 corridor, heading up to 995 Jacksonville to Savannah. And this storm will be with us for about the next 24 to 48 hours, spreading rain up the East Coast. There's that chance of isolated severe storms tomorrow, especially in Ohio. So we knew going into today, Hallie, this was going to be a dangerous storm. It's unfortunate we've had injuries and at least report of 1 fatality.
Bill Cairns, we're glad you're tracking it for us. We'll be checking back in with you as well. Appreciate it. Back here in Washington in just the last few hours, President Biden's making his support for Israel crystal clear in the face of what he says is an Iranian threat to attack Israel directly. Listen to this alarm bell he's ringing.
They're threatening to launch a significant attack on Israel. As I told Prime Minister Netanyahu, our commitment to Israel's security against these threats from Iran and its proxies is ironclad. Let me say it again, ironclad. We're going to do all we can to protect Israel's security.
Now, remember, Israel's been in these tit-for-tat fights with militant groups funded by Iran ever since the war started between Israel and Hamas. But the Israelis have been bracing for retaliation after they struck an Iranian consulate in Syria last week, killing several senior Iranian officials. NBC's Hallie is covering this for us from Tel Aviv, and there are multiple headlines on this front because the president today is also saying he's not totally satisfied with what he's seeing out of that ultimatum he gave Netanyahu last week to basically meet these conditions to cut down on civilian deaths in Gaza or risk losing American support. Talk us through all of it.
Indeed, Hallie, an interview that was taped last week, but that aired over the last 24 hours, really once again underlined how much President Biden is wanting to send, at least rhetorically, a message to the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, that there are too many civilian deaths and not enough aid going in. He even called Netanyahu's approach to the war a mistake, calling for an immediate ceasefire. We don't have official reaction from the Prime Minister's office. We've asked, but we haven't received that yet. However, you're hearing really on Israeli news channels the idea that there is a change in tone. There is even perhaps a change in policy coming from the United States. Unclear what the consequences might be, Hallie. I don't think that anybody believes that there will be a big reversal in terms of U.S. military support to Israel, but it was enough, Hallie, to get the Israeli Prime Minister to make some announcements to relent on, for instance, opening a new northern aid route, the Erez crossing that's been closed since October. We're still waiting on that to happen. But all of these things certainly are indications that the Israeli leadership is taking what President Biden is saying at this point a little bit more seriously.
There's another headline that could be a potential flashpoint here, too, with the IDF saying they killed 3 sons of Hamas's top leader. How does that factor into these ceasefire conversations that are already very delicate?
That's a good question. In fact, Ismail Haniyeh is the political leader of Hamas. He's exiled in Qatar. We have video, I believe, that was first aired on the essentially Hamas-affiliated television network of him visiting injured Palestinians in the hospital in Qatar, where his aide put somebody from Gaza on loudspeaker, and that person told Ismail Haniyeh that 3 of his sons and 4 of his grandchildren were killed in an Israeli strike on their vehicles inside of Gaza. That's his reaction there, which was quite muted. He was very clear when he was interviewed by Arab media in the aftermath of that announcement, saying this will not soften our position in any ceasefire negotiations. And Hallie, we're still waiting for a reply by Hamas to proposals that were put forth over the weekend in Cairo. There are some questions, though, about whether or not Hamas would be able to come up with a number of hostages requested by Israel. This is one of the questions that we're hearing asked at this stage. But so really a lot of very significant developments in the last 24 hours from this part of the world. Back to you.
And we're glad to have you there, Hallie Garani, reporting for us live from Tel Aviv tonight. Thank you. Back here at home, inflation hotter than expected in March, with one economist summing it up in a single word: ouch. Maybe not the word you want to hear when it comes to your money, but that is the case. And look at this, the Dow down a little bit, more than 400 points on the news. Some experts had predicted the Fed could start lowering rates in June. But now with all of this, they're saying that first rate cut probably won't come till the fall. President Biden today saying he stands by his prediction that the Fed will lower rates sometime this year. Of course, the question, Caleb Silver, who's joining us now, the question is when. We've been talking about inflation for a long time. It is stubborn, and today's report really underscores that.
Yeah, we got 3.5% on an annual basis. Guess what it was a year ago? 3.7%. It just shows you how sticky inflation is, especially in energy prices and shelter prices and what we call the unavoidable costs. Juice, baby formula, baby food, eggs, proteins. All of these things are getting more expensive month after month. We're not getting any signs of deflation, just rising prices. So the Fed is likely to not lower interest rates because the economy's cooking right now. We have high inflation. We have a very low unemployment rate, plenty of jobs out there. If the Fed lowers interest rates, it could make inflation worse. So they're likely to wait maybe till fall, maybe even until next year.
So then what does that mean for people's money, right? We know that if you already have a mortgage, you're locked in, it's a 30-year, whatever, like you're fine, you're set. But if you're looking for a new loan, perhaps, if you've got those credit card, interest rates on credit card debt, it could be a factor.
It's a big factor. Credit card APRs are north of 20%, some 24%. At 24%, average credit card debt is about $6,600 per borrower. That's just going to keep going up because we keep spending. They say the cure, Hallie, for higher prices is higher prices because eventually consumers tap out. Consumers have shown no sign of slowing their spending, just getting deeper and deeper into debt. So high interest rates for the foreseeable future, high-ish inflation for the foreseeable future. We need to right-size our family budgets right now because prices aren't coming down and neither are interest rates.
Caleb Silver, thank you very much. Out west, the political shockwaves are not subsiding anytime soon after that earthquake of an abortion ruling in the key battleground state of Arizona, with former President Donald Trump today saying that that state's highest court went too far in reinstating this Civil War-era law banning nearly all abortions. And after a lot of questions about his position on a national abortion ban, he's making some news. He's saying today he would not back one. Listen. Okay, so he says no, he wouldn't sign one if it came to his desk. He's reiterating he thinks abortion access should be decided by the states. But President Biden's taking issue with that, clapping back on X that it's not about states' rights, but women's rights. Our Peter Alexander at the White House asking about it all.
On the issue of abortion, sir, respectfully, what do you say to the people of Arizona right now who are witnessing a law go in place that dates back to the Civil War era?
Elect me. I'm in the 20th century, 21st century, not back then. They weren't even a state.
And in the middle of this political firestorm, some women on the ground in Arizona say they're just disappointed.
I think it's really sad for all the women that need abortions or they can't have a child. Like right now, they're being forced to now have a child and they're losing the rights for their bodies. It makes me really sad.
Dana Griffin is joining us now live from Arizona, where you've been talking with voters there today. We heard some of it here, Dana. The piece of it, right? If yesterday was about the legal fallout, the health impacts in Arizona with abortion now outlawed in that state, no exceptions in cases of rape, no exceptions in cases of incest, only for life of the mother. Today, it really is about the political fallout, and you're seeing that in a big way.
Absolutely. Yeah, voters that we spoke with today say that they want a candidate that aligns with their views when it comes to this hot button issue. There are different stances on abortion rights issues, but many that we spoke with are not for a total ban, including one woman I spoke with who says she had to get an abortion when she was younger because it saved her life, and she was emotional just talking about that experience. She says she doesn't want this right taken away from the younger generation who may face similar situations. Now, in this particular law, there are protections for women in case their life is threatened, but there are several other cases like rape and incest where this is not protected here in Arizona, and that's the bigger concern. Listen to what she told me.
I think voters are really going to go with their heart, and especially if they have a special connection to an issue such as this, that's going to be the vote.
And Hallie, as you mentioned, everyone is talking about this, including the governor of Arizona. Katie Hobbs tweeted that her executive order, which removes county attorneys' ability to prosecute women and doctors for performing or receiving abortions, remains. This is something that she signed into law last year, and she wanted to remind people that that still stands. So if anyone is concerned that their rights could be revoked, this is another avenue to say, hey, there are several people, including the governor and the attorney general, who are not going to prosecute people that decide to get an abortion.
Right,
Hallie?
so no enforcement. Is there any appetite politically there, Dana? And I don't know if we don't have an answer to this question yet, to try to repeal the law in other ways, perhaps legislatively? It sounds like Democrats in the State House will try next week to do that.
So we were out with a group that was canvassing. They are trying to get signatures so that they can have an initiative on the ballot to codify reproductive rights in the state. They've already received the needed number to make it onto that ballot, but they are now collecting additional signatures, more than double of what they need, because they say there is this process of verifying signatures. So they don't want anything to try to disrupt this initiative on the November ballot, which is something that they are aiming for, Hallie. And they say that they will fight tooth and nail to try to make sure that they get these sort of protections. Listen to what one of those canvassers told me.
That seems to happen a lot with our Republican legislators, so not a surprise. She will flip-flop whichever way the wind blows so that she can get votes and gain power. That's all it's about.
And now to confirm what she was talking about, she's talking about Carrie Lake. She is the Arizona Senate candidate who 2 years ago praised this law, this 1864 law, but recently she now says she opposes it. And so that particular woman was talking about the particular flip-flop that they see some candidates make when it comes to these hot-button issues. And again, a lot of people will be watching this issue very closely, and they will be heading to the ballot because of it. Hallie?
Dana, really quickly here, before I let you go, we've been talking about, obviously, the political fallout here. What's so interesting is there are other states that have very restrictive abortion laws, banning abortion in a lot of instances. Those states are much more ruby red than Arizona, which, as you point out, is going to be such a critical battleground come November. Vice President Harris, we know, is getting deployed, essentially, by the Biden campaign later on in the week to be where you are to talk this through. I mean, the national spotlight is on the state where you are.
Absolutely. Yeah, there are some 21 states that have some sort of restrictions for abortions, and we know that at least 12 of those are going to have measures on the November ballot because this is such a major issue. This is now being put in the hands of the voters. And as you mentioned, Vice President Kamala Harris was scheduled to be here because of her reproductive rights tour. And so this is coming at a pivotal moment where she will be here Friday addressing this issue, and we hope to be reporting on that soon when she gets here. Hallie?
Dana Griffin, live for us there in Arizona. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. To Capitol Hill now, where, stop me if you've heard this one before, a small but disgruntled group of House Republicans are thumbing their noses at their own leaders, shooting down a bill former President Trump basically tanked this morning. It has to do with this controversial law that makes it easy for the government to spy on some people. Donald Trump is not a fan. Kill FISA, he says. And a handful of Republicans today were like, yeah, sure, okay, even though House Speaker Mike Johnson really wanted to get this passed.
We cannot allow Section 702 of FISA to expire. It's too important to national security. I think I think most of the members understand that. So ultimately, of course, it weakens our hand in negotiations with the Senate and the White House, and so it's not a good development. But look, we're going to work, find consensus. We have to get the job done, and we will.
All of it, interestingly, is part of this pattern that we've seen, right? This is now the 7th time this Congress that House Republicans have been in control of, that one of these so-called rule votes failed. Half of those happened under the ousted Speaker, Kevin McCarthy. Sahil Kapoor is on Capitol Hill, and the specter of the ousting of Kevin McCarthy looms large here over Speaker Mike Johnson, right? Because he's facing this growing headache. It only takes one vote now to kick him out. Marjorie Taylor Greene has been threatening to remove him with that one vote, a la what happened to his predecessor, Kevin McCarthy here. Talk us through the dynamics.
Yeah, that's right, Hallie. This is becoming a very familiar problem for Speaker Mike Johnson, this inability to even get a rule passed on the House floor, to even bring up a bill through the normal process. It's been a very long time since this Republican-controlled House used a rule to pass a bill that ended up becoming law. They usually use this two-thirds suspension process, which ironically empowers the Democratic minority quite a bit. In this FISA rule vote, it was 193 to 228, 19 Republicans voted against that rule. Nearly all of them are Freedom Caucus members. There's a heavy overlap here between the group of right-wing lawmakers who are agitated with Speaker Johnson, who are growing quite antsy with the leadership of this, with, I guess, the new leadership under Mike Johnson's watch. Johnson said after the vote that Republicans will regroup and formulate another plan that FISA Section 7 and 2 cannot be allowed to expire. Let's take a look at some of the provisions that are in this law. It is currently set to lapse on April 19th next week. What it does, it allows the government to spy on foreigners without a warrant. They can access emails, texts, and phone calls. It does not apply to Americans or so-called U.S. persons, people living here lawfully as permanent residents. And it has critics on the left and the right. It has a rather extraordinary coalition that is pushing an amendment to ban warrantless surveillance of U.S. persons, ban a situation where these could get swept up in their surveillance without them getting a warrant. That coalition includes people like Jim Jordan, the Republican chair of the Judiciary Committee, Jerry Nadler, the Democratic ranking member. These two don't agree on much. It includes Freedom Caucus members like Andy Biggs and Progressive Caucus members like Pramila Jayapal. So that's, you know, the broad coalition here, at least the ideologically broad coalition that wants to make changes to the FISA law. And then, of course, the question for Speaker Johnson becomes, if he can't get this through, how is he going to get something more challenging like Ukraine aid, which is where Marjorie Taylor Greene comes in? Let's play what she had to say.
It's not about whether you like President Trump or not. The Republican Party, Republican voters are supporting his policies, yet Mike Johnson's leadership has been completely opposite.
And of course, Marjorie Taylor Greene has not yet triggered a vote to oust him.
All of it comes as the Speaker is, it seems, trying to tie himself tighter to former President Trump. He's saying he's going to Florida, to Mar-a-Lago for a press conference on election integrity. Why?
Yeah, he didn't exactly elaborate, but the issue of election integrity is something that Donald Trump obviously cares a lot about. To him, in the past, it has meant election procedures that Democrats use, you know, things like mail-in voting and early voting. Not exactly clear what's going to come of this meeting, but, you know, Speaker Johnson does need someone like Donald Trump on his side at the moment. Trump has a lot of sway with these right-wing members of the House who are upset with Johnson, and, you know, that includes Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is largely a political creation of Donald Trump. She would not move forward with this motion to vacate and remove Johnson if Donald Trump was emphatically against it. Wouldn't surprise me if Speaker Johnson were to try to bring that up. Hey, could you ask Marjorie to knock it off? That would be helpful to him here.
Sahil Kapoor, thank you very much with all the dynamics there on the Hill. Let's take you to Idaho tonight, where tonight in a courtroom there, the defense for a man accused of killing his wife and his then-girlfriend's 2 kids, telling a jury his client had a pretty average life until Lori Vallow came into the picture. Listen.
You hear testimony about this beautiful, vivacious woman, very sexual person, and very manipulative. And she knows how to get what she wants.
But prosecutors say Chad Daybell was somebody who wanted sex. He wanted money, they say, and power. And that he labeled anybody who stood in the way of that as zombies and dark spirits. That's why, they say, he killed his own wife, Tammy Daybell, and then Vallow's 2 youngest kids, 7-year-old Joshua J.J. Vallow and 16-year-old Tylee Ryan. Accusations that Daybell pleads not guilty to. You'll remember court documents later revealed that Joshua's remains were buried in a pet cemetery and that Tylee had been dismembered in a fire pit. Vallow got a life sentence for her role, no parole in her trial last year. Steve Patterson joins us now. And Steve, this trial, this case has gotten so much attention because of just the horrific details in it and the response from folks. watching what appeared to be this nightmare unfold. We started hearing some witness testimony today, too, right?
Horrific and unbelievable. And we spent most of the morning, in fact, hearing from one of the witnesses. The detective originally assigned to this case was there for the original welfare check on one of the kids, on JJ, talking about how difficult it was to get a hold of Lori or to get a hold of Chad, that they never called the police to say that the kids were missing, and that at any point when police were trying to get in touch with him, there was a new excuse or a new way in which they were blocked from doing that, until there was a time in which that detective came face to face with Chad Daybell, and he describes that to the jury in court. Listen to this.
He stated that he felt I was accusing him of something. And had you accused him of anything? No, I simply asked him the whereabouts of JJ and asked him for his wife's telephone number.
The detective also laying out a very graphic and, I mean, just horrific timeline of the events that took place, along with what we believe to be are maybe the final photos that were taken of JJ before his death, and what is obviously just kind of the tip of the iceberg here. Hallie?
Well, you talk about that iceberg, Steve, because as this case played out, there kept being, I mean, it was like almost like peeling back an onion with these new layers and new layers. Police were investigating. These other mysterious deaths started to surface, right? Talk us through the expectations now over the course of the maybe 2 months that this trial could last.
I mean, the expectation is we're going to see those layers, and not to make light of this in any way, because this is as awful as it is unbelievable, as it is sordid. But I mean, this is probably more ridiculous than any true crime podcast you may be listening to at home. These are people that lived in an alternate reality, according to the prosecution, that had a celestial rating system that determined if you would live or if you were good enough or bad enough to die. And the kids that were in their care were on that system. These are people whose spouses died as they were having an alleged affair days before they got married. This is not an onion of details, Hallie. It's a Russian nesting doll. And if the prosecution really wants to put this guy away, we are going to get to the bottom of it. As graphic and as horrible as that is, I think over the next few months or so. Hallie?
Steve Patterson watching it all for us there live from Los Angeles. Steve, we're glad to have you on it. Thank you.
Yeah. 6
former Mississippi officers now getting handed 15 to 45-year sentences for torturing 2 black men in a brutal racist attack. You see the ex-officers here in court today, the group, who nicknamed themselves the Goon Squad, admitted to verbally abusing and beating Michael Corey Jenkins and Eddie Terrell Parker last year, beating them repeatedly, using stun guns on them, assaulting them with a sex toy. Jenkins was even shot in the mouth. During the sentencing, Jenkins and Parker's lawyer read statements on their behalf talking about just how deeply, just how intensely they were traumatized by this.
They left me to die bleeding on the floor, and they tried to set me up to be in prison. Your Honor, they killed me. I just didn't die. My life was not perfect, but it was mine. I doubt if I'll ever experience it again.
Priya Sridhar is joining us now. So listen, these men, Priya, were already sentenced to several years on federal charges. What does today's sentence mean?
That's right. So these men were charged with home invasion, aggravated assault, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy. And they pleaded guilty to all of those felonies at both the federal and the state level back in August. Just a few weeks ago, they were sentenced by a federal judge to 10 to 40 years. Today, they each received anywhere from 15 to 45 years. So as you can see on your screen there, for some deputies, that will mean a little bit more jail time. For others, however, these sentences will be served concurrently. The victims and their families spoke to us outside of the courtroom after the sentencing, and they said that they were happy with these results because the state had actually asked for half of the sentences that the judge ended up imposing. So the fact that he gave double the length of time than what the state had actually asked for, they said sent a very strong message to the people in Mississippi that this type of police brutality and excessive force won't be tolerated, Hallie.
This was so high profile. I mean, this case remains so high profile. Even the attorney general is talking about it. Merrick Garland, he obviously doesn't do that with every case. Talk about the reaction here.
Yeah, well, we did hear from the Mississippi Attorney General shortly after the sentences were handed down today. The statement in part says the actions of these 6 men did grave harm to these 2 victims, Michael Jenkins and Eddie Terrell Parker, and violated the trust of all the citizens they swore to protect. Today's sentencing marks the culmination of 15 months of model cooperation between our office, the U.S. Attorney's Office, the FBI, and the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation. And Hallie, it's also important to note that there have been several complaints of excessive force against the Rankin County Sheriff's Department. So today, at the end of the court proceedings, the group here that included some leaders from the NAACP and also the victims and their families marched over to the Sheriff's Department and demanded answers from the Sheriff Brian Bailey, who they're now saying should step down from his position because they believe that he knows about what they say is systemic racism in this Sheriff's Department. Hallie.
Priya Sridhar, thank you very much for your reporting. In just a second, the anger in Ohio, a new video showing an officer who's been in trouble before shooting a 15-year-old. But the body cam footage is telling us. And the new legal trouble for a former NFL superstar. Yeah, we'll explain what happened near a Starbucks. Tonight, outrage from the family of a teenager in Ohio after he was shot by police while holding a toy gun. Police there released body cam video of what happened. We're only going to show you the moments leading up to and right after the shooting. We're going to show it once right now. You see officers in the car there. They're approaching 15-year-old Tavion Kuntz Williams, responding to a 911 call about somebody pointing a gun at houses in a neighborhood. So you see them, they're pulling up. Moments later, a shot was fired, and there's a warning here. We've got to tell you, this is going to be hard to watch.
It's fake. Shots fired. Shots fired. It's fake. It's fake. It's fake. It's fake. It's fake. Shots fired. It's drop fake. To the ground. Drop to the ground. Drop to the ground. It's fake. Drop to the ground. Drop to the ground.
Kuntz Williams was shot once in the wrist. You can see him on the ground there afterwards in handcuffs. The police department blurring that shot for privacy. Tavion's now recovering from his injuries. I want to bring in Shaquille Brewster now. Shaq, what do we know about what happened here, and specifically about this officer? Because it doesn't appear to be his first time in trouble with the department here.
Right, Hallie. His name is Ryan Westlake. He's been on the force for about 9 years, and the mayor's office actually released his entire personnel file. And in that file, we see that he's received multiple disciplinary actions and has been involved in multiple use of force incidents, including one that was deemed unreasonable. And I want to go back to some of those details that we see in that file, because it was in May of 2021 that we saw he was suspended for multiple incidents, including brandishing a firearm toward his girlfriend while intoxicated. He appealed that suspension, but then was fired and then was reinstated the next day after agreeing to the original suspension. You see, the next year, he was ultimately suspended again for a shorter period of time. But going back to this shooting, Hallie, the police department confirms and acknowledges that that firearm was essentially a replica firearm. And I want to play a little bit more of that video, Hallie, just so you can hear Tavion explain why he had that on him.
We got paramedics coming, man. I'm a good kid, bro. I get A's in school. I play football. I just wanted to be safe. My cousin just died.
His family's attorney is telling me that Tavion's cousin was killed just recently from gun violence.
We've heard a lot about the police accountability and the impact that body cameras, this body-worn footage has on that. I mean, this is something that's been consistent over the course of the last several years here. Talk us through sort of the bigger picture here when it comes to some of these images now coming out.
Yeah, because it feels like we're seeing these images more and more.
Yeah.
There was another case, I'm here in Chicago, another case where you saw a body camera video cause a lot of outrage in the community of a police shooting here. But going back to this, I mean, when you look at what departments have done, there's a report that dates back to 2018 that shows about half of all departments, 47% of law enforcement departments have obtained body camera video or body cameras to be placed on officers. That number ticks up to about 80% when you look at larger departments. And the argument for them continues to be it's more transparency. Think about this case. The video was released in full, nearly in full, within 7 days. But officers and departments also say that it's also used to help gather more accurate evidence, and that they're also used to help officers be better prepared, and is used in training. So you still see these incidents, but officers and departments are saying that it is helping, even though it is obviously uncomfortable to see.
Shaq Brewster, thank you very much. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, former Baltimore Ravens star Terrell Suggs just arrested for assault in Arizona. Court documents say he got into an argument with somebody at a Starbucks drive-thru after he backed into that person's car. Our local affiliate reports that Suggs also showed off a gun to that person before he then drove away. Officials say he is no longer in custody. Number 2, the Trump Organization's former money man, Alan Weisselberg, just sentenced to 5 months in jail after he pleaded guilty to 2 perjury charges in Donald Trump's civil fraud trial. Prosecutors say Weisselberg lied under oath in a deposition about the role he played in valuing Mr. Trump's Fifth Avenue apartment at 3 times what it was actually worth. Remember, Weisselberg also served a separate 100 days in a criminal fraud trial, also related to his position in the Trump org. Number 3, first sport to give out prize money at the Olympics will be track and field. Gold medalists will get $50,000 at the Paris Games in just a couple months. Silver and bronze medalists will start getting paid in 2028 at the Games in LA. It's a huge change for the Olympics, right? Typically, it's just the medal that's the prize. The World Athletic Federation president says the money now is meant to recognize that the athletes are, in his words, the stars of the show. Number 4, more cherry blossoms are coming. The Japanese prime minister says Japan will give the U.S. 250 new cherry trees, a sign of diplomacy as he's on this big trip here to D.C. to meet with President Biden. The new trees will help replace some of the hundreds getting torn out this summer, including beloved Stumpy, as part of a project to repair the seawall there at the tidal basin. Number 5, take a look at this. Krispy Kreme launching a limited edition Kit Kat donut. 3 kinds of donuts with little Kit Kat pieces on them. All right. In other news now, after the break, New York's beloved owl can now rest on your arm for all eternity. How you, too, can honor Flacco's memory. NBC News covers hundreds of stories every day, and because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. Out of our Northeast Bureau, at least 3 people have been shot, including a child, with 5 others in custody now after police say multiple people opened fire at a Ramadan event near a mosque in Philadelphia. You're looking at aerials of the scene, a really big police presence. This crowd had been celebrating the end of the holy month of Ramadan when at least 2 groups of people shot at each other, according to police. Out of our Midwest Bureau, a massive, rare, and very smelly flower is starting to bloom at a home in Michigan. It's called a corpse flower, because that is apparently what it smells like, rotting flesh. It attracts beetles and flies. It can grow up to 8 feet tall. It only blooms once every 7 to 10 years. The couple who owns the plant is live streaming the whole thing, so you can watch smell-free. And out of our Northeast Bureau, a tattoo artist in Brooklyn is commemorating beloved Flacco the Owl by offering discounted tattoos of the bird all day tomorrow. Flacco, an icon in New York City, and to the Hallie Jackson Now show team as well, becoming a celebrity after escaping captivity at the Central Park Zoo. Flacco lived as a free bird for like a year. He avoided all these attempts to recapture him, but he sadly died earlier this year after flying into a building. But you, too, can commemorate Flacco forever in a tat. Overseas now, where we're seeing tonight, just like in states all across the U.S., a major dilemma for trans youth, this time in England, where there are new restrictions now on gender-affirming care for minors in response to a government-commissioned report out today. The retired pediatrician author saying that for most young people, a medical pathway is not the best way for them to deal with gender-related issues like dysphoria. The move sends England in the direction of dozens of states here in this country who are also restricting gender-affirming care for children. NBC's Matt Bradley is following this one for us. Talk about the impact of this report where you are overseas here and the new regulation now from the Government Health Service.
Yeah, well, I think the major impact, Hallie, is going to be where you are right now over the seas. For me, that's where the conversation about this particular topic is the hottest right now. But this UK move to limit access to these puberty-blocking treatments, this came along with what you just mentioned, that damning report from an independent psychologist who said that current programs have been, quote, letting down children, and that the toxicity of the debate around this gender meant that professionals were afraid to openly discuss their view. But the main thrust of this report, and this just came out just today, and a lot of the research that's been formed, some of these decisions that have been made in these other European countries that you mentioned, is that there just isn't enough evidence to show that these young people are actually being made any happier by using these drugs. And, that's, of course, the aim of psychology, to make people happier, to make them more stable. And there just isn't enough research to determine what kind of effects these puberty-blocking drugs will have on young adults after they've grown up. And that's crucial. These are pretty new drugs. So the doctor who put together this report, she said that her medical staff, or all medical staff in the UK, they're tired of administering these, quote, therapies that have no guidance, no evidence, and no training. So with this decision, as you mentioned, Britain's going to join 4 other European nations, almost all of them in the Scandinavian north. They all have limited the use of hormone treatments, and all of them doing this over just the past 4 years as new evidence has come to light. But these European laws and regulations, they're different than the outright bans that we've seen in some 24 countries that have imposed these rules on these therapies. In the UK, prepubescent teens, they'll still have access to the therapies if they're part of a clinical trial, and the law won't prosecute or threaten to investigate them. Hallie?
Can you pull on one of the threads that you touched on here, Matt? The idea that this report is critical of the, not just the treatments, but the conversation around the treatment as well, saying that, I'm quoting here, the surrounding noise and what they call polarized public debate is not helping these kids.
Yeah, it's the kind of debate that I think you might recognize where you are around this very particular issue. And, Dr. Hilary Cass, that is this independent psychologist, she blamed the incredibly hostile nature of the debate around gender-related care for children and young adults. And she described a kind of a chilling atmosphere around the care that these children are given. That's part of what she was saying, how these kids are treated unfairly. She said that some British doctors, when confronted with potential gender dysphoria cases, and that's one of the underlying conditions that leads to the prescription of some of these puberty-blocking drugs, she said that these doctors, that they're often anxious to refer the cases onward to specialized clinics. And this meant that the first-line psychologists, they were often missing or simply not paying enough attention to other mental health issues that a lot of these patients also were suffering from. So Dr. Cass, she spoke with some British partners, Sky News, about what she found, and here's what she said.
Ideology on all sides has directed care rather than care being directed by normal principles of pediatrics and mental health. I mean, certainly professionals are afraid to do the things that they would normally do in any other consultation with a young person.
So, Hallie, as you're hearing, it's not just the medicine, it's the conversation, too, that has led to a lot of these decisions. Hallie?
Matt Bradley live for us there in London. Matt, thank you. When we come back, the first of its kind regulations on so-called forever chemicals just out today that should make your waters safer. Will it? That's next. A big move from the EPA today to try to make our drinking water safer. For the first time ever in this country nationwide, trying to do something about so-called forever chemicals in our water. The agency announcing today it's putting some new rules in place to try to limit these chemicals. They barely break down. They can stick around in our air, in our water, in our soil for years. And they're found in stuff that you use every day. The stuff you cook with, your rugs, even your floss. While some water companies may have to pay more to test for and filter these chemicals, the EPA says this could save thousands of lives because forever chemicals, they're linked to a whole laundry list of health problems like cancer, like infertility. Dr. John Torres is joining us now. Okay, so Dr. Torres, the EPA is technically limiting 6 types of these chemicals. But this is, and listen, there are experts who say any step is a good step, but this is almost quite literally a drop in the bucket considering how widespread these forever chemicals actually are. What is the impact that this could actually have here?
And Hallie, you're exactly right. And the reason they are doing these two chemicals specifically, and we're talking PFASs, and the two they're doing, the two specific PFASs are PFOS and PFOAs. Those are the ones that they can detect, and those are the ones that have historically been used in a lot of products. And like you mentioned, nonstick cookware, they're used in stain-resistant fabric for carpets and couches. They're used in water-resistant clothes that we wear, and unfortunately, they leak into the environment. And like you mentioned, they can last years, and by years, I'm talking 1,000+ years in the environment and get into us. There are a lot of health risks associated with this. And you mentioned anything from, we're talking cancers, infertility, developmental delays, the list goes on and on. They're attacking what they can right now, and they're looking at the other ones to see what problems they might have and how they can attack those as well, Hallie.
Where do these forever chemicals come from? How can we try to keep ourselves safe from them? Are there ways that we can test, et cetera?
So there are ways you can test, but those tests, we don't really know what to do with them. There's a blood test. Unfortunately, it costs hundreds of dollars, and it's very hard to get. So it'd be one of those things that you'd have to get on your own. And as a physician, if you came to me, I wouldn't know what to do with that test. The best thing is to try to avoid them as much as possible. Manufacturers have started to take them out of those things they're manufacturing them into. And so we're seeing less and less in the products that we buy. As far as your water, there are some things you can do. There's a consumer confidence report you can get from your water company. And in some states, it'll tell you whether those PFASs are in there or not. You can also get the water tested. It should be an EPA-approved lab that can test it. And there are certain filters that can filter it out. Not all filters, but certain filters. You want to make sure it's a PFAS-certified filter that can get rid of them. And some of them get rid of 50%. Some of them get rid of 100%. It's still kind of a bit of a Wild West out there, Hallie.
Yeah, sure sounds like it. Dr. John Torres, always glad to have you and your expert advice here on the show. Appreciate it. We are coming on the air tonight with Louisiana locking down as we speak because of these huge storms, maybe life-threatening floods, possibly tornadoes, getting ready to slam the South. More than a foot of rain reported in some spots. You can see these cars trying to drive through. We're live in Slidell, Louisiana. We're also live with the new inflation report making the markets mad. Why the Fed might not be able to give you any relief anytime soon. Then we're live in Arizona with new reaction from folks there after that controversial bombshell court decision reviving a Civil War-era abortion law. The state's governor. More on what she's doing to try to limit its impact. Plus, we go inside an Idaho courtroom for a wild case getting a lot of national attention. Why Chad Daybell's lawyers say his then-girlfriend is to blame in the killing of her 2 kids and his wife. Plus, we'll take you live to the White House as President Biden gets ready for a state dinner with the Japanese Prime Minister. What we know about the glitz, the glam, what's on the menu, a little later on in the show. Hey, I'm Hallie, and tonight dangerous and possibly deadly flash flooding and tornado watches are sweeping the South as we speak, with millions in the path of these intense storms. Reported tornadoes in Louisiana bringing down street poles, power lines. Streets and buildings just wrecked. Look at this. Reportedly, multiple people taken to the hospital. We're seeing huge trees pulled up. Look at that one. Look at how big that root system is. And in this is daylight, but the sky's that dark, and you can see one of the tornadoes starting to form there. Ooh, and then that flash of light, really scary. Another tornado in Texas took the roof off this building. You can see the damage. On top of this, torrential rain has New Orleans in a rare flood emergency. Water coming up almost to people's knees. Same thing in eastern Texas with this volunteer from a fire department there out driving through the water. Cars almost totally submerged up to their windows. Some spots reported getting something like 15 inches of rain overnight. Now, one town in Mississippi is telling folks to evacuate ASAP because of concerns a levee could breach from so much water. It doesn't stop there. We're seeing hurricane-strength winds up to 90 miles an hour or so, with tens of thousands of people now in the dark. Meteorologist Bill Cairns is standing by with what to expect as the day turns to night. But first, I want to get to Kathy Park, who's on the ground for us in Slidell, Louisiana. And we see it behind you there, Kathy, the damage that so many folks are dealing with.
Hallie, that's absolutely right. We just got to Slidell not too long ago, and you don't have to go far to see the extent of the damage. Behind me is what's left of a salon. In fact, my producer spoke with a customer who was here early this morning, and she said she was covered in glass because, as you can see, the structure completely is blown out. Only the metal framing is left behind, and she had to be rushed to the hospital to get pieces of glass removed from her. Meanwhile, not too far from here is an apartment complex. Several people people. Roughly 50 people had to be rescued from this apartment complex because that structure was heavily damaged. And these are the stories that we're starting to hear about. I can see there is a whole lot of traffic on the roadways as well. Utility crews are on the ground right now trying to get the traffic lights back on, but tens of thousands of people are still without power, and it might take some time to get everyone back up and running. Not too long ago, earlier today, we were in St. Francisville Parish, where they also saw a whole lot of destruction, more trees down there, lots of debris. Here is more from one resident we spoke with. Take a listen.
I just remember staring out of the window, and I could see crazy wind coming over the house, and our chicken shed the roof started coming off that, and then it really kind of circled the house a little bit.
Very fast, just a blur of gray.
And Hallie, you'll notice the skies have cleared. The storms are out of here, but the severe weather threat isn't over. It actually shifts over to the east tomorrow. 25 million people will be impacted, but obviously, certainly a lot of cleanup ahead here in Slidell and really all across Louisiana.
So it's the cleanup, Kathy, as you say, but it's also about trying to get the lights back on to all those folks, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, at last check, I was seeing upwards of close to 200,000 people still without power. People still need to go to work and to school. But the good news is, Hallie, a lot of schools in the area, they canceled classes and they decided to go remote and do classes virtually because they knew the storm was headed this way, including the LSU campus. So a lot of folks weren't on the roads. They weren't in school. A lot of folks were actually working remotely as well. So that's certainly some good news. But many injuries are being reported, and we do know of one fatality in Mississippi.
Kathy Park, thank you very much for your reporting live for us there from Slidell. Appreciate it. Let's get to Bill Cairns now, our meteorologist who's tracking all of it. Where are the trouble spots as we speak, and what can we expect in the next couple hours tonight?
Yeah, isolated tornadoes. I'm not expecting a lot. We didn't have a lot today, actually. I think we only probably going to end up with 2 or 3. So possibility of maybe 1 or 2 more tornadoes. But the biggest thing is that it's still pouring and the storms are not moving quickly. So that's the number one thing I'm going to be concerned with is flash flooding, and hopefully nothing like what we saw in New Orleans earlier today. 6 inches of rain in just about 6 hours. It was one of their 11th highest rainy days at the airport on record. So this was a big historic event for some areas. All these dots show you where we've had the severe weather. Baton Rouge, a lot of trees down. We had 1 tree that fell in a car with 4 people in it. 1 person is in critical condition. The other 3 have been released from the hospital. The Slidell tornado, we just showed you where all these reports are. And then it's been hit and miss since then. We've had a lot of issues with high wind gusts. Some of the highest I've seen are up to 84 miles per hour. Tornado watch continues from Albany, Georgia through Tallahassee into Panama City. And this little red dot just popped up. That's a new tornado warning that is just to the west of Panama City. So we'll keep an eye on that in the next half hour or so. Here's the area right here that's in that tornado warning, heading toward Ebro, just south of Interstate 10. And notice how slowly these storms are moving. And the biggest concern with that is flash flooding. I mean, these are just like, pretty intense thunderstorms producing 1 to 2 inches of rain an hour, and they're not moving. This is where that tornado warning is. So in Panama City, we have to watch you closely in the next half hour or so to see if that shifts towards you. That's a radar indicated tornado. Otherwise, high wind gusts. That same area under the tornado warning, now under a flash flood warning, because as I mentioned, the storm's not moving quickly. It's producing a ton of rain right during the evening rush hour. We still have a flash flood warning just to the west side of New Orleans. That water's starting to recede, but there's still a lot of ponding out there. And right around Biloxi, there's still a flash flood warning. And that's it for our flash flood warnings. Additional rainfall. This is that area I just showed you that's moving slowly. That's 3 to 5 inches of rain tonight through areas of southern Georgia. And then tomorrow, we do it again, Hallie, but not like today. It's going to be more scattered, and we're actually going to have to watch this area up in Ohio, especially eastern Ohio. Yikes. There's a chance of an isolated tornado or 2, more wind gust damage in Florida. So we'll be done with this storm by the time we get to Friday, and the weekend's looking a lot better.
Real quick, Bill, how unusual is it to see this kind of storm in the spring? I know that we typically sometimes see these spring systems blowing through.
Yeah, April is our second highest month for tornadoes and for severe weather. So it's expected we should get a storm like this about once a week throughout this month. And we'll do it again Monday, Tuesday, but we'll talk more about that later.
All right, Bill Cairns, lots to watch. Thank you.
Yeah.
Overseas now, in just the last few hours, President Biden making his support for Israel crystal clear at the White House in the face of what he says is Iran's threat to attack Israel directly. Listen.
They're threatening to launch a significant attack on Israel. As I told Prime Minister Netanyahu, Our commitment to Israel's security against these threats from Iran and its proxies is ironclad. Let me say it again, ironclad. We're going to do all we can to protect Israel's security.
Remember, Israel's been in these tit-for-tat fights with militant groups funded by Iran ever since the war between Israel and Hamas started after that terror attack on October 7th against Israel. But the Israelis have been bracing for the retaliation after they struck an Iranian consulate in Syria last week, killing several senior Iranian officials. NBC's Hallie is covering this for us from Tel Aviv. There are multiple headlines on this front because the president today is also saying he's not totally satisfied with what he's seeing out of that ultimatum he gave Netanyahu last week to basically meet these conditions to cut down on civilian deaths in Gaza or risk losing American support. Talk us through all of it.
Indeed, Hallie, an interview that was taped last week but that aired over the last 24 hours really once again underlined how much President Biden is wanting to send, at least rhetorically, a message to the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, that there are too many civilian deaths and not enough aid going in. He even called Netanyahu's approach to the war a mistake, calling for an immediate ceasefire. We don't have official reaction from the Prime Minister's office. We've asked, but we haven't received that yet. However, you're hearing really on Israeli news channels the idea that there is a change in tone. There is even perhaps a change in policy coming from the United States. Unclear what the consequences might be, Hallie. I don't think that anybody believes that there will be a big reversal in terms of U.S. military support to Israel, but it was enough, Hallie, to get the Israeli Prime Minister to make some announcements to relent on, for instance, opening a new northern aid route, the Erez crossing that's been closed since October. We're still waiting on that to happen. But all of these things certainly are indications that the Israeli leadership is taking what President Biden is saying at this point a little bit more seriously.
There's another headline that could be a potential flashpoint here, too, with the IDF saying they killed 3 sons of Hamas's top leader. How does that factor into these ceasefire conversations that are already very delicate?
That's a good question. In fact, Ismail Haniyeh is the political leader of Hamas. He's exiled in Qatar. We have video, I believe, that was first aired on the essentially Hamas-affiliated television network of him visiting injured Palestinians in the hospital in Qatar, where his aide put somebody from Gaza on loudspeaker, and that person told Ismail Haniyeh that 3 of his sons and 4 of his grandchildren were killed in an Israeli strike on their vehicles inside of Gaza. That's his reaction there, which was quite muted. He was very clear when he was interviewed by Arab media in the aftermath of that announcement, saying this will not soften our position in any ceasefire negotiations. And Hallie, we're still waiting for a reply by Hamas to proposals that were put forth over the weekend in Cairo. There are some questions, though, about whether or not Hamas would be able to come up with a number of hostages requested by Israel. This is one of the questions that we're hearing asked at this stage. But so really a lot of very significant developments in the last 24 hours from this part of the world. Back to you.
And we're glad to have you there, Hallie, reporting for us live from Tel Aviv tonight. Thank you. Out west, the political shockwaves are not subsiding anytime soon after that earthquake of an abortion ruling in the key battleground of Arizona, with former President Donald Trump today saying that state's highest court went too far in reinstating this Civil War-era law banning nearly all abortions. And after a lot of questions about his position on a national abortion ban, saying today he would not back one. So you see him shaking his head no there to that question. Mr. Trump's reiterating he thinks abortion access should be decided by the states. But President Biden, for his part, he's taking issue with that, clapping back on X that it's not about states' rights, but women's rights. Our Peter Alexander at the White House asking about it all.
On the issue of abortion, sir, respectfully, what do you say to the people of Arizona right now who are witnessing a law go in place that dates back to the Civil War era?
Elect me. I'm in the 20th century, 21st century, not back then. They weren't even a state.
In the middle of this political firestorm, some women on the ground in Arizona say they're simply disappointed.
I think it's really sad for all the women that need abortions or they can't have a child. Like right now, they're being forced to now have a child and they're losing the rights for their bodies. It makes me really sad.
Dana Griffin is joining us now from Scottsdale. We heard that woman say she's very sad, she's disappointed, but there is also some energy and momentum here from folks who are now trying to fight back after this court ruling from state legislators, for example, who appear to be trying again next week to try to repeal this 1864 law, and from voters who are mobilizing now to try to get this on the ballot come November.
Yeah, you know, Hallie, they are angry. I've seen tears today. Yeah. Women are sad. And they are galvanized. They are taking this all the way to the November ballot. And there's actually a group called Access for Abortion Rights here in Arizona. They are part of the team that is trying to get on the November ballot an initiative that will codify reproductive rights in the state. They've already received some 300,000+ signatures, but they are trying to more than double that because they say the process of verifying those signatures can be so finicky and they easily get thrown out. So they want nothing that could potentially stop this process from going all the way to the November ballot. Listen to what one canvasser told me earlier today.
We're hoping this will turn folks out in November and hopefully get folks to vote all the way down the ballot. Don't stop at the top. The hope is that this will amend our state constitution, not to 1864, but to 2024, and that rights will be restored in Arizona.
Yeah, and you hear that sentiment throughout so many different people, including the person at our hotel who was checking us in. We told her that we work for NBC, we're covering the story, and she's like, thank you for covering this issue. Everyone's talking about it. And it's affecting so many people, whether they've had kids or not. I spoke to one woman who had to get an abortion to save her own life. So she says she understands why this issue is so important for the health of women going forward. Hallie?
I'm fortunate because of your amazing team who has sent around the interviews of the people you talked to and reading through them today, just looking at sort of this idea, that was consistent, this thread that I know you picked up on too in your interviews of people who now are looking to sort of scramble to try to stop this here. What's interesting about the state of Arizona, unlike other states that have very restrictive abortion bans in effect, Arizona is a real battleground state here. It's home to one of the highest profile Senate races in the country. And you're already seeing some Republicans in the state, including controversial candidate Kari Lake, a Republican, distancing themselves from this law. So if that's the case, right, why wouldn't it end up repealed soon?
Exactly. And it's very likely that it will, Hallie. And voters are taking note of what's happening, even with their local politicians. One talking about Kari Lake and how she flip-flopped because 2 years ago she was praising this law. Now she says that this issue should be up to the voters. And when we talk about the protections for this state, you've had the Attorney General come out and say that she is not going to prosecute any doctor that performs an abortion or any woman that seeks an abortion. You've also got the governor, Katie Hobbs, recently tweeting that she is also going to protect women and not prosecute anyone that seeks an abortion. And she tweeted here, I just lost it, but essentially she said that she, oh, actually, I got it back. She says that there's a really important part here that's interesting. She says, I refuse to allow extremist county prosecutors to use this abortion ban to lock up women and doctors for seeking or providing needed health care. And it's just such an interesting topic to see how these lawmakers and state leaders are coming out backing the need for this issue to be in the hands of women and the people who are impacted most. Hallie?
Dana Griffin, live for us there in Scottsdale. Dana, thank you. To inflation, now hotter than expected in March, with one economist summing it up in a single word, ouch. That is maybe not the single word that you would hope would describe your money, but it is, and the markets too, with stocks kind of tanking, the Dow down something like 400 points at the close. Some experts had predicted that the Fed could start lowering rates in June, but now with this headline, with this news on the inflation numbers, they're saying the first rate cut probably won't come until the fall. President Biden today says he stands by his prediction that the Fed will lower rates sometime this year. Question is, when? Question is, if Caleb Silver, who is joining us now, the Fed is hoping to get inflation down around 2%. It is not there, not yet. So what does it mean for, you know, my money, my friend's money, your friend's money, et cetera?
Yeah. Higher prices like this for the foreseeable future, and also higher interest rates like this for the foreseeable future, because the Fed has been keeping interest rates at a 14-year high to try to bring down inflation. We're at 3.5% on an annual basis. A year ago, we were at 3.7%. It just shows how this sticky last bit of inflation is so hard to bring down. It's food prices, it's shelter prices, and it's energy, the three things we can't get away from.
It's a blow to President Biden, right, potentially, because you've got this moment where if people feel like they're spending more money on the basic stuff at the grocery store, wherever, that's impactful in a way that, you know, other kinds of monetary issues are not.
That's right. And there's not a lot he can do about it except talk about shrinkflation and talk about the fact that we're paying more and getting less. But you can't force businesses to lower prices. The cure for higher prices is high prices, because eventually consumers stop paying them. But we haven't stopped paying them. We go deeper into credit card debt every month just to make ends meet. So those prices are going to be with us for a while. There's nothing the president can do except talk about it. If you look at the economy, though, broadly speaking, it's a strong labor market and it's a pretty strong economy. A lot of people are not seeing that because of these high prices.
Caleb Silver, thank you very much. Let's take it to Capitol Hill now, where, stop me if you've heard this one before, a small but disgruntled group of House Republicans are thumbing their noses at their own leaders, shooting down a bill former President Trump basically tanked this morning. It has to do with this controversial law that makes it easier for the government to spy on some folks. And Donald Trump is not a fan. You see it there. Kill FISA, he says. Okay, said a handful of Republicans today, even though House Speaker Mike Johnson really wanted to get this passed.
We cannot allow Section 70205 to expire. It's too important to national security. I think most of the members understand that. So ultimately, of course, it weakens our hand in negotiations with the Senate and the White House. And so it's not a good development. But look, we're going to work, find consensus. We have to get the job done, and we will.
All of it, part of this growing pattern. Now, the 7th time in this Congress that House Republicans failed to pass one of these so-called rule votes. Half of those happened under the ousted House Speaker, Kevin McCarthy. Sahil Kapoor is on Capitol Hill for us. So, like, there's two pieces of this. There's the bill itself, and then there's the bigger picture about what the fight over this bill says. As for the bill itself, most Republicans, many Democrats say they want this to pass. Bigger picture, right, it says something about the conference right now that House Speaker Mike Johnson can't get them all together and in line.
Yeah, it says a lot about House Republicans right now, Hallie. They're struggling to govern on the most basic things. They're struggling to keep the lights on, keep the government funded. We saw how difficult the task that was. They're struggling to meet these deadlines for, you know, these provisions of law like FISA Section 702 that have been around for a long time. These tend to be on an expiring clock, and that clock is coming up due next week on April 19th. You see on the screen some of the provisions in the FISA bill that are expiring. It would allow the government to spy on foreigners without a warrant. They can access emails, texts, and calls. It doesn't technically apply to Americans or U.S. persons here in the country, permanent residents. It has garnered criticism from the left and the right, who say the government's powers here are too strong and need to be reined in. Specifically, there's a coalition of liberals and conservatives pushing an amendment here that would ban warrantless surveillance of U.S. persons, create a high bar for surveillance that ends up sweeping up the information and the data of American citizens. What Speaker Johnson did here was essentially try to unify his narrow, wafer-thin Republican majority around this rule, and he failed in part because he shut out Democrats. He didn't include them in the process of writing this, and he ended up pairing a resolution about Israel that included pointed criticism of President Biden, which Democrats were never going to sign on to. Let's play what Pete Aguilar, the third-ranking Democrat, said about that.
The Speaker has chosen not to advance this issue in a single standalone process. If he chooses to go a different route, then we'll reassess.
In other words, Aguilar is hinting that there is still a path to get Democrats on board. Maybe it's a two-thirds way. Maybe it's a standalone rule that doesn't include the partisan language. But today, Speaker Johnson took a shot, and he missed.
Sahil Kapoor, live for us on the Hill. Thank you. Out West, court wrapping up in just the last hour in Idaho in the trial of a man accused of killing his wife and his then-girlfriend's 2 kids. A detective describing to the jury the moments his team finally found one of the children's bodies dismembered in a fire pit.
As soon as they did that, we could start to smell the odor that, through my training experience as a decomposing body. After they excavated and took the dirt off the plastic, it revealed what appeared to be a small body wrapped in black plastic.
Just horrific details coming out in the trial here of Chad Daybell. Prosecutors say he wanted sex, money, and power, and labeled anybody who stood in the way of that as zombies and dark spirits, which is why they say he killed his own wife, Tammy Daybell, and then Lori Vallow's two youngest kids, 7-year-old Joshua J.J. Vallow and 16-year-old Tylee Ryan, accusations Daybell is pleading not guilty to. Vallow got a life sentence for her role with no parole in her trial last year, his then-girlfriend. Steve Patterson is joining us now. So, Steve, prosecutors have said they are trying to get the death penalty here for Chad Daybell. Talk us through sort of the opening moments here, how both sides are laying out their cases.
You know, it's stark and as simple as you might imagine. The defense, as you would imagine, of course, labeling their client as something of a victim, somebody that got caught up with this dangerous woman who, by the way, has already been convicted and sentenced to multiple life sentences. And for his part, that, you know, his role in all of this more benign, that he was a standbyer, somebody that was watching most of these events unfold and not the key participant. Whereas the prosecution, as you so well laid out, describing this guy as somebody that was obsessed with power, obsessed with money, obsessed with sex, and obsessed with death as a tool to get the prerequisite 3. Prosecution not pulling any punches right from the beginning. Here's opening statements. Listen to this.
The evidence will show that it was a convenient narrative that dehumanized people who stood in their way and who were labeled as obstacles. This narrative gave them the pretext to remove people from this world for their own good.
Of course, opening statements, but also that detective that you were playing for us at the beginning. Most of the morning is what we heard from him, including the first moments that the children went missing, to laying out just this awful timeline of just miserable events, the tip of which we are just seeing, obviously, as this trial continues for the next several months or so. Hallie.
So lay out the expectation of what we could see over the next couple of months here, because some of the details here and some of what has been revealed in the course of this investigation are jaw-dropping.
I mean, if Lori Vallow Daybell's trial was any indication, we don't have time to talk about the parade of awfulness that we're going to hear in the next few months or so. And this has to be this way for the prosecution to truly get a conviction that includes sentencing guidelines that feature the death penalty. We're going to go there, right? And that's anything from the cosmic awful, these people really, truly believing, according to the prosecution, that they're a part of some sort of alternative, rating system that where they're judging people who can live and who can die and who has dark spirits within them so they can commit these murders against their own family, to the practical awful, collecting illegal life insurance, including to the prosecution, and their spouses dying just days before they get married, shown in these jubilant photos after it happens. We're going to hear it all because it's all pertinent to the case. That's what we heard in the last trial. That's what we'll hear in this trial as well. Hallie?
Steve Patterson watching it all live for us there from L.A. Thank you. Coming up, Margot Robbie's new plans to spin another two-dimensional world into 3D that may have you asking, will they pass go? We'll explain why. Plus, the red carpet rolling out at the White House right now in a big show of diplomacy. These are some of the live pictures. We'll tell you who has stepped over those cherry blossoms in just a sec. Breaking news, there is an arrest warrant now out for Rashee Rice. We're going to bring you the details. We're just getting this in from our team after you remember that video showing him walking away, it seems, from a crash. We're going to bring that to you as soon as we get more on it. But first tonight, outrage from the family of a teenager in Ohio after he was shot by police while holding a toy gun. Police there released body camera video of what happened. We're only going to show you the moments leading up to and right after the shooting once. In just a second, you see officers in the car approaching 15-year-old Tavion Kuntz Williams, responding to a 911 call about somebody pointing a gun at houses in a neighborhood. Moments later, a shot was fired. Got to warn you, this could be hard to watch.
Hey, it's fake. Shots fired. Shots fired.
It's fake. It's fake. It's fake. It's fake. It's fake.
Shots fired.
It's
Drop to the ground. Drop to the ground. Drop to the ground.
It's fake.
Drop to the ground. Drop to the ground.
Kuntz Williams was shot once in the wrist. You can see him on the ground there afterwards in handcuffs. The police department blurring the shot for privacy. He is now recovering from his injuries. Shaquille Brewster is joining us now. Shaq, what do we know about what happened here, and specifically about this officer? Because it doesn't appear to be his first time in trouble with the department here.
Right, Hallie. His name is Ryan Westlake. He's been on the force for about 9 years, and the mayor's office actually released his entire personnel file. And in that file, we see that he's received multiple disciplinary actions and has been involved in multiple use of force incidents, including one that was deemed unreasonable. And I want to go back to some of those details that we see in that file, because it was in May of 2021 that we saw he was suspended for multiple incidents, including brandishing a firearm toward his girlfriend while intoxicated. He appealed that suspension, but then was fired and then was reinstated the next day after agreeing to the original suspension. You see, the next year he was ultimately suspended again for a shorter period of time. But going back to the shooting, Hallie, the police department confirms and acknowledges that that firearm was essentially a replica firearm. And I want to play a little bit more of that video, Hallie, just so you can hear Tavion explain why he had that on him.
We got paramedics coming, man.
I'm a good kid, bro. I get A's in school. I play football. I just wanted to be safe. My cousin just died.
His family's attorney is telling me that Tavion's cousin was killed just recently from gun violence.
We've heard a lot about the police accountability and the impact that body cameras, this body-worn footage, has on that. I mean, this is something that's been consistent over the course of the last several years here. Talk us through sort of the bigger picture here when it comes to some of these images now coming out.
Yeah, because it feels like we're seeing these images more and more.
Yeah.
There was another case, I'm here in Chicago, another case where you saw a body camera video cause a lot of outrage in the community of a police shooting here. But going back to this, I mean, when you look at what departments have done, there's a report that dates back to 2018 that shows about half of all departments, 47% of law enforcement departments, have obtained body camera video or body cameras to be placed on officers. That number ticks up to about 80% when you look at larger departments. And the argument for them continues to be it's more transparency. Think about this case. The video was released in full, nearly in full, within 7 days. But officers and departments also say that it's also used to help gather more accurate evidence, and that they're also used to help officers be better prepared, and is used in training. So you still see these incidents, but officers and departments are saying that it is helping, even though it is obviously uncomfortable to see.
Shaq Brewster, thank you very much. Let's get now to that breaking news coming out of Texas, where police are issuing an arrest warrant for Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver Rashee Rice after his apparent involvement in a multi-car crash in Dallas. You remember this video? We referenced it a second ago. It's dash cam video, and you can see the crash. Rice's attorney has said that the 23-year-old was behind the wheel of the Lamborghini that caused it. And then this video showing Rice apparently walking away. 4 people were hurt in the crash. Danny Savalos is joining us now. Danny, I know this arrest warrant is just out. We're just getting our hands on the documents here. Talk us through it.
Yeah, it looks to be a charge of aggravated assault, which in Texas, aggravated assault with a vehicle can be a felony. There are 3 different grades, so I'm not entirely certain, and I haven't seen exactly which kind of felony it is. But either way, aggravated assault in almost all jurisdictions is a felony, and many jurisdictions criminalize the aggravated portion is the use of the motor vehicle. And of course, you have the collision involving serious bodily injury, and those SBI charges are always going to bump up a crime and always make it more serious. So these are real crimes with real potential prison time. And so that is something that you can expect to be charged. I didn't see anything suggesting anything like intoxication or anything like that.
Okay.
That doesn't mean it may not be there in the future, but no indication right now based on the charges that I'm seeing that intoxication played any part.
Now, it sounded like Rice's attorneys, if I remember correctly, had said that he is going to cooperate. They said he is pledging to cooperate here. Dallas PD says that Rice is not in custody yet. When would that typically happen?
Within 24 hours,
Okay.
very, very quickly. I mean, the way it works is if they allow him to turn himself in, which they will, if he's represented by counsel, I have no doubt that counsel has been in contact with the police.
Okay.
Everyone knows who everyone is. This isn't an unknown fugitive. This is a situation where they know who the person is that they're interested in, and they talk to the attorney. The attorney says, we'll come in tomorrow as soon as possible, probably before Friday if they can help it, so he doesn't get held over the weekend if there's any chance of him getting held or maybe not being able to get before a judge in time. So if I'm his attorney, I think you might expect to see him as early as tomorrow, maybe even tomorrow morning, turning himself in.
His attorney, as we mentioned, acknowledged that Rice was behind the wheel of that car. I mean, I know you understand what goes through the mind of a defense attorney. Talk us through sort of the arguments here, what plays out next.
Sure. I mean, well, vehicular cases like this have changed completely in the last 10 years because there are cameras literally
Video cameras,
everywhere, not just dash cams. Yeah, there are not just dash cams on police vehicles, which was the situation, I would say, 7, 8 years ago. Now every car has numerous cameras. And if your car doesn't have one, the car next to you probably does. And if they don't, then there's a Ring doorbell camera somewhere within 50 yards. So everything's on camera. Likely as not, you know, the kind of argument, hey, my client wasn't necessarily behind the wheel that would have worked in 1988. It just doesn't work now. If your client was driving, they usually know he's driving. And as you can see, there's already plenty of video. There's probably even more we don't know about. So that's not the kind of thing you would expect to fight too hard in a case like this.
Danny Savalos, thank you very much. More to come on that as we get more details in. We'll bring it to you as we have it. But for now, let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, that 18-year-old from Idaho we told you about yesterday, who was arrested by the FBI and charged with supporting ISIS, has pleaded not guilty. Court documents show he was planning to attack local churches in the name of ISIS, according to officials. He's detained right now. His trial set for May. Number 2, Ford's recalling like 43,000 smaller SUVs over gas leaks that could cause fires. Dealers will add a tube to direct the gas away from hot surfaces. Ford says it's gotten reports of fires, but that nobody has crashed so far as they know. Number 3, more cherry blossoms are coming. The Japanese prime minister says his country will give the U.S. 250 new cherry trees, a sign of diplomacy, as he's on that big trip to meet with President Biden. The new trees will help replace some of the hundreds getting ripped out this summer, including the beloved Stumpy, the sort of sad but, you know, embraced little cherry tree on the tidal basin. There's been a ton of flooding, so they're going to fix the seawall around the tidal basin there. More on the Japanese prime minister's visit in just a sec. Number 4, track and field will be the first sport to give out prize money at the Olympics. Gold medalists will get $50,000 at the Paris Games in just a couple months. If you win silver or bronze, you have to wait until the 2028 Games in LA to claim your cash prize. It's a huge change for the Olympics. The World Athletic Federation president says it's meant to recognize that the athletes are, in his words, the stars of the show. Number 5, Margot Robbie's going to make a new movie after Barbie. This one, the Monopoly movie, apparently. The companies behind it are announcing. The project has passed go. It's happening. It'll be based on the board game. Will there be a Reading Railroad? Will they pass go? So many questions. Coming up, the super scary scenes of a fire happening in a very busy part of Hong Kong. We've got the video in just a second. Plus, why a filthy fecal fiasco could throw a wrench in a centerpiece of the Summer Olympics. So right now, the high-profile guests are starting to roll through the White House for President Biden's state dinner with the Japanese prime minister, the 5th state dinner of the Biden administration, a tradition usually reserved for the closest of our allies. France, South Korea, India, Australia have already had theirs. You're looking live here. This is like the entryway. It's like, I don't know, the White House version of the Oscars red carpet, right? You come in, you get your picture taken, everybody looks at what you're wearing, etc. This big dinner is the end of phase 1 of the Japanese prime minister's visit to the U.S. Tomorrow, he'll head up to the Hill to address Congress and hold first-of-their-kind 3-way talks with President Biden and the leader of the Philippines. NBC's Monica Alba has posted up near the White House for us. Monica, it's a jump ball. Do you want to start with, like, the fun, glammy, glitzy stuff or, like, the politics of it all? You pick.
Oh, the fun, Hallie. Let's go with
lay it on
that.
us. Menu, dresses, stars. Go through it.
And let me give you this fun fact. It is not just your regular red carpet today. In fact, it is a designed, appearing to be like a koi pond carpet that is leading guests up to the actual state dinner. That also has some cherry blossoms on it. Of course, that is a big part of the backdrop to all of this. But in terms of the guests, there is always a notable combination of some celebrities, of some high-profile politicians. We're seeing both of that in former President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton attending, in addition to Robert De Niro, who was asked when he walked into the state dinner, what do you think of the election? And he literally replied, what do you think? And then just kept walking. So notable attempt by the reporters to try to get Mr. De Niro to gaggle, but he was not as into it. Of course, we are also seeing that Tim Cook is in attendance, Jamie Dimon. And then, yes, when it comes to the menu, this is something that the First Lady and the Social Secretary labor over for months. They spend a lot of time designing it. Everything sounds pretty delicious. You've got your house-cured salmon, your dry-aged ribeye steak, but I don't know, Hallie. I think we would be in it for the dessert, salted caramel pistachio cake that has a matcha ganache, cherry ice cream, and a raspberry drizzle in the form of a little cherry blossom. Okay? Yes, I hope, you would want some of those.
Like when you say matcha ganache, it does something to my brain.
Like our ears.
It's like a little thing. Okay, fine. So we did the dessert editorially also first. Talk us through kind of the geopolitics of this, because we mentioned, critical talks coming up. The president, obviously the Japanese leader, have a lot on their plate, pun intended, I guess.
Definitely, Hallie. And this is really, when you talk about the state dinners that the president has hosted so far, this is by design. Several of those have been members of the Quad, which is the alliance that has always been meant to shore up the Indo-Pacific against potential aggression from China. So that was a big theme of the visit today. But in addition to all these other international crises, and certainly there was a lot of discussion about the war in the Middle East, about the war in Ukraine, but also new areas where the U.S. and Japan feel that they can have some commitments on when it comes to artificial intelligence and some other areas of technology. So these kinds of state dinners always have a lot of the policy. There will be some announcements that come out of it again in terms of some of those promises for both leaders. But really, it's all about hosting them and about having then also a little bit of the revelry, which will include a performance by Paul Simon for all of the guests who are gathered later this evening at the White House.
Monica Alba, just outside the White House tonight, watching it all go down on that coy cherry blossom red carpet, I suppose. Mon, thank you. NBC News covers hundreds of other international adjacent stories every day. And because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our teams around the world have done it for you. Here's a look at what they're watching in a segment we call The Global. Out of Hong Kong, at least 5 people are dead, dozens more hurt after a fire at this apartment building. Some 250 people were forced to evacuate. Officials think it started in the gym on the first floor. They're still investigating. In Israel, thousands of Palestinian worshippers at the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem, one of the holiest sites in Islam. But this year, the war in Gaza is overshadowing typically festive celebrations marking the end of the holy month of Ramadan, when Muslims fast from sunrise to sunset. And in France, a fecal fiasco in the big river running through Paris could derail some of the plans for this year's Olympics. The president of the organization says the swimming section of the triathlon could be postponed or canceled because one group is warning that there's bacteria, too much of it in the river. It's still too high, including the, I'm quoting, pollution fecal origin. That's even though Paris spent like $1 billion to clean up the Seine. Remember, the swimming event that was supposed to be a test was canceled this summer because of pollution. The IOC says they're looking into it. Listen, gang, games are coming up quick. They got to get this done if they're gonna. When we come back, the first of its kind regulations on so-called forever chemicals just out today that should make your water safer. Will they? A big move from the EPA today to try to make our drinking water safer. For the first time ever in this country nationwide, trying to do something about so-called forever chemicals in our water. The agency announcing today it's putting some new rules in place to try to limit these chemicals. They barely break down. They can stick around in our air, in our water, in our soil for years. And they're found in stuff that you use every day, the stuff you cook with, your rugs, even your floss. While some water companies may have to pay more to test for and filter these chemicals, the EPA says this could save thousands of lives because forever chemicals, they're linked to a whole laundry list of health problems like cancer, like infertility. Dr. John Torres is joining us now. Okay, so Dr. Torres, the EPA is technically limiting 6 types of these chemicals. But this is, and listen, there are experts who say any step is a good step, but this is almost quite literally a drop in the bucket, considering how widespread these forever chemicals actually are. What is the impact that this could actually have here?
And Hallie, you're exactly right. And the reason they are doing these two chemicals specifically, and we're talking PFASs, and the two they're doing, the two specific PFASs are PFOS and PFOAs. Those are the ones that they can detect, and those are the ones that have historically been used in a lot of products. And like you mentioned, nonstick cookware, they're used in stain-resistant fabric for carpets and couches. They're used in water-resistant clothes that we wear, and unfortunately, they leak into the environment. And like you mentioned, they can last years, and by years, I'm talking 1,000+ years in the environment and get into us. There are a lot of health risks associated with this. And you mentioned anything from, we're talking cancers, infertility, developmental delays, the list goes on and on. They're attacking what they can right now, and they're looking at the other ones to see what problems they might have and how they can attack those as well, Hallie.
Where do these forever chemicals come from? How can we try to keep ourselves safe from them? Are there ways that we can test, et cetera?
So there are ways you can test, but those tests, we don't really know what to do with them. There's a blood test. Unfortunately, it costs hundreds of dollars, and it's very hard to get. So it'd be one of those things that you'd have to get on your own. And as a physician, if you came to me, I wouldn't know what to do with that test. The best thing is to try to avoid them as much as possible. Manufacturers have started to take them out of those things they're manufacturing them into, and so we're seeing less and less in the products that we buy. As far as your water, there are some things you can do. There's a consumer confidence report you can get from your water company, and in some states, it'll tell you whether those PFASs are in there or not. You can also get the water tested. It should be an EPA-approved lab that can test it, and there are certain filters that can filter it out. Not all filters, but certain filters. You want to make sure it's a PFAS-certified filter that can get rid of them, and some of them get rid of 50%, some of them get rid of 100%. It's still kind of a bit of a Wild West out there, Hallie.
Yeah, sure sounds like it. Dr. John Torres, always glad to have you and your expert advice here on the show. Appreciate it. We've got more coverage picking up right now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.